Chosen One, I need you to stop for a second and recognize the chaos unfolding in the wake of your survival. The full coordinated force of a deliberate campaign was launched to bring you down, yet here you are, upright and unbothered. Currently, people are confused and struggling to find out what's going on. No one thought you would be this resilient, and your ability to remain standing has become their greatest embarrassment. You have always been a little harder to read than most, a little harder to knock down, a little harder to keep contained inside the small story that other people wanted to tell about you. There has always been something in you that refused the ceiling, something that sensed even in the hardest seasons, even when you were exhausted and doubting yourself from the inside out, that the place you were standing was not the place you were meant to finish. Most people who are built the way you are built get told the same lie early. The lie sounds like this: you are too much, you feel too deeply, you want too much, you need to be more realistic, more manageable, easier for other people to be around. And for a long season, maybe longer than you would like to admit, you believed it. You turned down the volume on yourself. You softened the edges. You kept accommodating people who were, underneath their criticism, simply intimidated by your actual size. Every time you held your peace when you should have walked, every time you stayed in a situation past its natural end because you were still trying to make it work, and every time you absorbed something that should have been refused, all of that pressure was compressing something inside of you into something much harder. It was like coal being pressed into a diamond without knowing that is what is happening. You felt only the weight. You did not yet know what the weight was building. The people who are now sitting in a very confused room saw the compressed version of you. They saw the quieter one. They saw the one that had learned to move carefully through spaces that did not fully welcome it. And they made a catastrophic mistake. They thought that was your ceiling. That mistake is the seed of everything that is about to come undone for them. Hold that image. We are coming back to it. Something ended, or something shifted, or something shifted, or you finally walked away from something that had been costing you far too much, and the moment that happened, a plan was put into motion. There is someone from your past who built their entire post-separation identity on a single story that you needed them, that you could not function without their presence, that eventually the discomfort, the loneliness or the weight of whatever happened would drive you back, and they would be waiting, arms open, terms already decided, ready to receive you on their conditions. They told that story to everyone around them. They painted a portrait of you, showed it around, and the portrait only made sense if you were desperate, if you were crumbling, if you were eventually going to come back and confirm everything they said about you. And when time passed, and no call came, when silence held on your end without breaking, something shifted in that person. It was something they had not planned for. It started as confusion and moved quickly into panic. So they stopped waiting. They organized. Here is where the stakes become real. Rather than sitting with the discomfort of your absence, this person reached out to others, a circle of people assembled specifically for this purpose, with a specific skill set and a specific motivation. The instruction was simple: make this person fold. The method was not honesty, and it was not any real conversation. The method was pressure, invisible, coordinated, strategic pressure designed to get under your skin and stay there. The goal was to make you feel exposed. The goal was to make you feel ashamed and small, like something you had done or something you had been put on display for the worst possible audience. The goal was to collapse your sense of self just enough that when the rescue appeared, and it was always going to come from the one who set the whole thing in motion, you would reach for it without thinking. It is one of the oldest manipulation tactics that exists. Create the wound, position yourself as the cure, and then own someone through the gratitude they feel for a rescue you manufactured. But here is what this group completely failed to account for. You had already been through the fire, and the fire had already done its work. Let me tell you about the specific quality that made you unkillable to this kind of attack. It is not that you have no wounds. It is not that you are too strong to be affected, or too detached to feel. You feel everything. You always have. That depth of feeling is part of what makes you who you are. But over time, through every difficult season, every loss, every moment when the ground moved beneath you and you had to find footing in the middle of shifting ground, something in you developed a skill that most people never build. It learned how to hold you steady when the floor disappears. Most people, when the floor goes, go with it. They panic. They make decisions from desperation. They reach back toward whatever is familiar because familiar, even when it was harmful, feels more solid than freefall. That is the exact mechanism this whole operation was designed to exploit. If this message awakens something within you, hype this video for other chosen ones who need to hear this. You do not freefall anymore, not because nothing touches you, but because you have fallen before. You have hit actual rock bottom, and you survived it. Your whole system carries that memory. So when the floor moves now, when someone deliberately pulls the rug, when the coordinated pressure lands, there is a part of you that does not go into crisis. There is a part of you that has been here before and already knows the outcome. You will find your footing. You always do. That is your immunity. It is not armor you put on or a decision you make in the moment. It is muscle memory from surviving, built invisibly, layer by layer, over every hard season you endured without fully knowing it was building anything at all. What was aimed at you found scar tissue. Scar tissue does not bleed the way a fresh wound does. What this group was counting on was an open wound. What they found instead was something that had already healed into something much harder to damage. You were never the soft target they calculated you to be. What looked like vulnerability from the outside was actually the surface of something built through season after season of exactly the kind of pressure they thought they were introducing for the first time. The expectation was that you would reach back. The expectation was that you would do what most people do when they are being dismantled by absence and pressure. The desperate searching, the checking of old messages, the looking through whatever window was left available. That behavior was the proof they needed, that the operation was working. The whole plan was scaffolded on the assumption that you could not hold the silence. You held the silence. You did not hold it through white-knuckling or through forcing yourself to resist something you were desperate to do. You held it because something in you, something quiet and solid that grew in the space of your healing, genuinely did not want what was on the other side. When you truly no longer want something, silence is not a performance of strength. It is simply the truth showing up naturally. What people see when they look at your life right now is not what was scripted. What they are seeing is someone who got up. They are seeing someone moving through their days, doing the ordinary and necessary things of a life being lived, occasionally laughing at something, showing up for responsibilities, and not appearing to be at war with anything. That particular, impossibly ordinary, impossibly fine version of you moving through the world is the specific thing they cannot explain. A whole plan was set in motion. Resources were deployed. People were brought in. Everything available was aimed at one outcome, and the subject of all of it is out here simply living. The embarrassment of that result is already present on their end, but the internal pressure it creates between the people who agreed this would work and state credibility on delivering a result is compounding. An alliance held together by shared arrogance and the expectation of an easy outcome is now stuck with an outcome it cannot produce. And when people who promised results cannot deliver, they do not quietly accept it. They look for explanations. They look for someone to blame. The cracks forming in that room right now are the direct consequence of your continued, unbothered existence. Every ordinary day you live, you add to those cracks. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. You've also noticed something else. A lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have gone quiet, videos removed, voices pushed off the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine, And when you join, you're not just supporting your favorite channels, you're also fueling your own rise. It's a 360 win. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your destiny engine for $1 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. There is something worth examining in what the people who organized against you have been doing since the plan stopped working. They are checking constantly and obsessively. People who run the kind of operation aimed at you are accustomed to feedback. They expect to see signals, a post that reads as too raw, a behavioral change visible through mutual connections, the small evidence that tells an observer the pressure is landing. Without those signals, they have no way to calibrate, they have no way to confirm their approach is working. They are operating blind, and operating blind is not something people who pride themselves on precision handle well. Your absence of reaction is, in its own right, the most devastating response you could have given. Silence sustained long enough does not look like patience, it looks like indifference. And genuine indifference, the kind that is not performed but simply present, is the one thing that cannot be worked around. You cannot manipulate someone who is not watching the board. You cannot destabilize someone who is not checking for incoming moves. Each time they check on you and find nothing alarming, the confusion deepens and stacks. It begins to feel less like a delay in results and more like a fundamental misreading of who you are. That is the most destabilizing conclusion any operation can reach. Not that the plan failed, but that the person running it misjudged the target completely. That realization is happening right now, and you did not manufacture it. You did not strategize your way into their confusion. You became who you were already becoming. You kept showing up for your life. The confusion they are experiencing is the automatic, unavoidable consequence of your growth that happened quietly, on your own schedule, long before they decided to involve themselves in your story. You made a choice. Maybe you remember the specific moment. Maybe it felt enormous, the kind of decision that cost something real, that you sat with and questioned and worried about afterward. Or maybe, and this feels closer to the truth, it felt like almost nothing at the time. It was a small, private, completely unwitnessed thing. It was a habit you finally stopped feeding. It was a door you finally closed all the way and stopped leaving slightly open. It was a moment in your own mind where you caught yourself mid-cruelty, talking to yourself the way people who once had power over you used to talk to you, and something intervened, something said that stops now, not because someone told you to stop, because you decided you were worth the protection. Whatever the specific form it took, that choice reorganized something fundamental inside you, the version of you that existed when certain people had power over you, the one shaped by accumulated self-doubt and the belief that your worth was conditional, quietly stopped being the current version. It became a past version, not with drama, not with announcement. It simply stepped back and let something more solid come forward. The operation aimed at you was already running when you made that choice. The pressure was already being applied. And then the version of you they had been targeting ceased to exist, and everything they launched passed straight through empty space. The target stepped sideways. The entire calculation was based on someone who was no longer standing where they assumed. That is why none of it worked. It was not luck. It was not coincidence. It was the compounding result of every small, invisible, unwitnessed act of choosing yourself. Every moment you gave yourself the grace you kept extending to people who did not extend it back. Every boundary held in private, every time you stopped mid-sentence and refused to continue the cruelty toward yourself. None of that was wasted. All of it accumulated into the specific protection that stood between you and everything that was coming in your direction. There is something specific worth understanding about the kind of person operations like this one are designed to target, because understanding it will show you exactly who you are now and why you stepped outside that category. The target is not someone weak in the way people typically imagine weakness. The target is someone who cares deeply, someone who invests fully, who gives more than they receive and stays longer than the situation deserves, and who has been quietly operating on a belief they probably did not choose consciously. That belief says that their value is something they have to prove rather than something they simply carry. That belief is the entry point. That is what people who run this kind of manipulation look for, because someone who knows their worth completely, not just on good days or in confident moments, but as a settled, unkillable fact, cannot be entered through shame. Shame requires a person who is already carrying some quiet suspicion that they might deserve it. Humiliation only lands on someone whose sense of themselves depends on how others see them. The attempt to make someone look foolish only works if there is already a fear somewhere beneath the surface that they might be. You closed that entry point. You did not close it all at once. It happened gradually and painfully in some moments, in ways so slow and so private that you probably could not have named the progress while it was happening. But something shifted in how you spoke to yourself when no one else was listening. Something shifted in what you were willing to accept as reasonable treatment. Something shifted in the recognition, quiet, not showy, just true, that you were worth protecting. That shift is exactly what they could not read when they arrived with their plan. They scanned for the opening that had always been there before. It was gone. They pushed on the door. The door did not move, and they are standing in front of that closed door right now, having no framework to explain a version of you that no longer grants access by default. Real self-worth does not announce itself. It does not post about itself or perform itself for an audience. It simply closes doors. It removes the specific architecture that manipulation requires to function. It does not look like anything dramatic from the outside. It just makes certain approaches stop working entirely. They are confused because they are looking for a way in that no longer exists. You closed it, and you may not have fully realized at the time what a monumental thing that was. The people involved in what was directed at you are under a specific kind of pressure. It is the pressure of having promised a result and being unable to produce it. It is the pressure of having staked credibility on breaking someone who turned out to be unbreakable. That pressure is not abstract. It is the real compounding stress of a situation that will not resolve and that makes everyone involved look less capable with every day that passes. Under that kind of pressure, people stop being careful. They make moves they would not otherwise make. They say things they cannot take back. They reach when wisdom says to wait. They try escalation when what the situation actually requires is stepping back, because stepping back means admitting the target was never as reachable as they claimed. You are not doing anything dramatic. You are simply being, and your simply being okay is the most powerful thing you could be doing right now. There may be an approach coming your direction, something that looks like an attempt at reconnection or closure or genuine feeling. Do not be fooled by the packaging. What is actually being offered is access. Access to a version of you that used to be available in a way that served someone else's need for control. That version is gone. You have no obligation to respond, explain yourself, or provide the closure that someone who coordinated against you is looking to receive. Your peace is not available as a resource for people who tried to use it against you. The person from your past told a story that required your brokenness to hold together. You are not broken. The story, as a result, does not hold together, And the people that story was told to are beginning to notice the gap between what was described and what actually exists. That gap does its own work without you having to touch it. The truth is always quieter than the lie, but it lasts longer, and right now it is winning. The people who tried to make you small are spending significant energy tracking your movements, decoding your silence, monitoring whatever is visible of your life, and debating among themselves what you might be thinking or planning. Your name comes up in their conversations far more than their names come up in yours. Your behavior is being analyzed. Your silence is being interpreted and reinterpreted and is still not making sense to them. You, meanwhile, are not watching them. You are not tracking their movements or lying awake, trying to read their silence or calculating what they might do next. Your attention has genuinely gone somewhere else, not as a strategy, not to prove a point, but simply because it has moved toward the things in your life that are real and present and worth investing in. Your attention is a resource. It is time and energy and creative capacity and emotional bandwidth. They are pouring theirs into someone who is not thinking about them. You are directing yours into your work, your growth, your healing, and the people who actually belong in your life. Every ordinary day you live adds to your foundation and subtracts from theirs. You do not have to try to make this happen. It is the natural arithmetic of two different kinds of people moving in opposite directions, one moving forward, one remaining fixated. That is not irony. That is the exact justice that quiet, sustained, unbothered living produces over time. Something is arriving. It has been waiting at the edge of your life, unable to fully reach you through the noise, and now that the noise is clearing, it is moving toward you with nothing blocking its way. There is a path with your name on it, not metaphorically, a real specific trajectory made of real opportunities, real momentum, and resources that are proportional to who you have become. The reason you have not been walking it at full capacity is not because you were not ready. It is because something kept positioning itself between you and it, consuming the attention and the energy and the creative bandwidth that the path required of you. That obstruction is gone. What was behind it is now visible, and it is significant. Pay close attention to your work right now. Pay the kind of attention that is only possible when you are not constantly managing someone else's instability or rerouting your focus to keep a situation alive that was never going to survive on its own. You have that attention back now. Use it deliberately. Something was always trying to reach you through that space and simply could not get through the interference. That interference has cleared. New people are also arriving or are already on the edges of your life and moving closer. They are not the old pattern with a different face. They are genuinely different people who are encountering the version of you that exists now, rather than the version that was available when you were still compressed. These people are meeting your actual level, not the diminished one. Let them in. The life opening on the other side of this season is not a consolation prize. It is not the lesser version of something that did not work out. It is the exact thing that was always aligned with who you are, held at a slight distance by the specific obstruction that is now gone. It is proportional to your growth, and your growth has been real, deep, and extraordinary. The real goal was stagnation. When a person is held inside genuine emotional crisis, ashamed, exposed, convinced at a cellular level that they are the problem, they cannot move forward. The bandwidth required for growth is consumed entirely by crisis management. The clarity required to see new opportunities does not exist when attention is split between surviving the present and trying to make sense of what happened. The specific forward motion your life was building, the momentum you were gathering, the ground you were covering stops when the entire system is occupied with something that feels like an emergency. That is exactly where this operation wanted you. It wanted you frozen, your focus split and consumed, your energy directed into managing what someone else manufactured, rather than building what was always yours to build. But stagnation requires something from you that you did not give it. It requires the bulk of your focus, and something deep in you refused that. You processed the grief, felt the weight, and sat with what was real, and then you continued moving, imperfectly, sometimes slowly, but you kept moving. Because you continued moving, the stagnation landed somewhere else. It landed on the people who organized this, on an alliance that now cannot close a chapter that was supposed to be closed long ago, on an operation that is stuck because the outcome it needed from you never arrived. Their collective attention is locked on a situation that will not resolve. Their energy is occupied by a plan that is not producing. Their momentum has stalled. You are moving. They are stuck. And the distance between where you are headed and where that whole operation sits frozen increases with every single day you keep going. You are not a victim of what was done to you. You are the main character of a story that tried to write you out and failed. There is a fundamental difference between understanding that something was done to you and setting up permanent residence inside that understanding. You can know exactly what happened. You can name every layer of it clearly. You can hold the full truth of what was organized against you and still stand completely upright inside that knowledge, not wounded by it as your identity, not performing recovery for an audience, just informed, aware, and moving. That is the posture, the only one worth having. The pain is real. You are allowed to feel it completely and without apology, the grief of what you believed something was before it revealed what it actually was, the anger that is not weakness but intelligence, the internal compass that tells you exactly what you value and exactly what you will not accept again. Anger felt honestly and moved through is not a problem. It is information. Use it to orient yourself and then keep walking. What you do not do is unpack and live there. You give the truth the space it deserves, in private, on your own schedule, through whatever process is real for you, and then you continue. Not because you are pretending nothing happened. You continue because you are too focused on what is in front of you to set up camp at the place that tried to stop you. Powerful people do not build their identity from their wounds. They acknowledge the wound. They do what the wound requires, and then they walk. They do not limp for an audience. They do not wait for the people who hurt them to validate that they are okay. They simply move. The expectation was that you would unravel publicly, that you would say or post or do something that gave the whole narrative oxygen and confirmed the story being told about you. What happened instead was a closed door and the sound of your life continuing without them in it. You processed, you repositioned, you kept moving forward. You are sharper now than you were before this began. You are more certain and more boundaried in a way that does not require announcement or enforcement. It is simply part of you now. You do not need their understanding. You do not need their acknowledgement. You do not need them to agree that what you did was right. You already know. That knowing, quiet, self-sourced, completely independent of outside validation, is the specific thing they had no tool capable of touching. How do you break someone who is not breaking? The reason that question has no answer for them is that what they are trying to reverse is not a method or a practice or something installed through a single decision. It is a character trait forged across a long period of time, under real pressure, in conditions that were not chosen. It is so integrated into who you are that it no longer has a seam. You cannot find the edge of something that has fused completely into a person's nature and work it loose. There is nothing to grip. Your resilience is not something you do, it is something you became. Every season of getting back up when staying down would have been easier. Every time you found the path forward when the path was not visible, and every quiet moment you chose to continue when part of you was exhausted from continuing, none of that was just willpower in the moment. All of that was installation. It was building a character, layer by layer, that has now hardened into something that cannot be disassembled from the outside. What is being attempted against you is the application of a formula to someone. The formula does not fit. The tools being used were built for a different kind of target, someone for whom this kind of pressure is new, someone whose stability is relatively recent, and therefore relatively fragile. That is not you. You have been through more pressure than this, and your system has been tested at a depth that makes what is being applied now feel to your nervous system like something familiar and manageable. Every time the pressure is applied and you do not move, the cost increases on their side. The same quality in you that the whole operation counted on exploiting is the quality that is now working actively against everyone who decided to underestimate it. Do you remember the seed planted in the very beginning, the catastrophic mistake made by people who saw the compressed version of you and assumed that was everything you were? Let me show you what that seed grew into. Coal becomes a diamond through compression, not through gentle handling or careful refinement. It becomes a diamond through weight and force and sustained pressure in the dark, where no one can see the transformation happening. The coal does not know what it is becoming. It just experiences the pressure. Every hard season you moved through was the press. Every time you stayed patient when patience cost you something real. Every door you finally closed for good. Every boundary you held without external reinforcement. Every invisible, unwitnessed, uncelebrated act of choosing yourself over the familiar option that was slowly draining you, that was the press. What the press produced, what it has been producing the whole time, below the surface of your life without your full awareness, is what collided with a group of people who thought they were targeting something soft. They found the diamond. Now they are the ones who cannot figure out what is going on. Now they are the ones scratching through the plan, looking for the variable they missed. Nothing was missing from the plan. The plan was simply built for someone other than you. You did not beat them by fighting. You did not beat them by exposing them, or retaliating, or matching their energy, or making any public move in their direction. You beat them by being so completely unshakably yourself that there was nothing for their operation to grip. There was no wound open enough to enter, no door left unlocked, and no version of you available to play the role their plan required. Your growth outpaced their entire strategy. That is not a coincidence. It is the specific, irreversible consequence of doing the slow, private, unglamorous work of healing and choosing yourself over a long period of time. You are moving forward, healing, building, attracting real things, investing your attention in the life that was always waiting on the other side of the obstruction. You are working with a clarity and a focus that simply were not available before, because the space that was consumed by managing something unstable is now yours again. You are growing in ways you may not fully see yet, because the growth is still happening underground, the way roots always do before anything is visible above the surface. The other side of this is explaining itself, covering tracks, and maintaining a version of events that keeps not matching the reality you are actually living. The people who organized this are running out of time on an outcome that was never going to arrive. You did not have to lift a finger to produce that. You just had to keep being you. You are not just standing. You are moving. You are clearer than you have been. You are more certain and more aligned with the specific life that has always had your name on it, the one that always required exactly this version of you, the one built through exactly this kind of pressure in order to step into it fully. The smile that has been confusing and infuriating the wrong people since this began is not a performance of strength. It is not pretending. It is the specific, unmanufactured expression of someone who got through something designed to break them and came out the other side more fully themselves than when they went in. It is the expression of someone who knows, not because they were told, not because they proved it to anyone, but because they have lived it, that they are exactly where they are supposed to be. That knowing lives in you. It does not live in what people say about you, or in your public image, or in how a room you were never invited into chose to discuss you. It lives in you. It was built by you, out of every piece of fire and pressure and invisible choosing that made you the person you are right now. You are not a target. You never were. You are the one who does not fold. You are the one who holds the silence without gripping it. You are the one who gets up on the hardest days, not because it is easy, but because something ancient in you simply will not stay down. You are the one who chose yourself quietly, privately, and without applause enough times that the choosing became who you are, and not just something you do. They did not think you would be this resilient, but the fire knew. Every season of pressure knew. Every closed door and held boundary and private moment of choosing yourself again, all of it knew. And now you know too. Get up, keep your eyes forward, keep choosing yourself, and don't you dare look back.